So the foodborne illness coverage typically comes into play as part of the general liability policy. There could be specific foodborne illness type policies, right? Because if you have many people get sick, you have more exposure than just those that get sick, right? There's a media exposure that could come with it. So a good policy is going to be able to help you with respect to the future losses of the business. I mean, look at Corona beer right now, right? With the coronavirus. They didn't create it, but they're affected by it. Not that this is really a foodborne illness topic, but it just made me think of Corona and their loss of sales because of it. But that loss of sales that could come from, a number of people getting sick. If you have to close your physical plant down or your restaurant down for a number of days due to some type of contamination, you want to have that business interruption coverage included in that foodborne illness. If there's a product recall associated with your manufacturing because of an illness associated with whatever you're manufacturing, you need money to get that product back off the shelves and back into the warehouses so it can be disposed of and discarded properly. That's a significant expense. So these are some of the additional things that you would look at for foodborne. So different for restaurant. Restaurant could get closed, could have a business interruption issue, could need some media and PR expense to help bring business back in. And then on the manufacturing side, if you have a product recall, if you have people get sick, you want to be able to get that product back off the shelves, then you need time to ramp up a new batch, that's not contaminated. To be able to get it onto the shelves. You have that business interruption lag as well. So there's a lot of exposure with the foodborne illness for anybody that's manufacturing or distributing or selling and serving consumables, ingestibles, that we want to make sure that you have the proper coverage for. And sometimes it's covered in a business owner's policies. Other times it could be better to buy a separate policy for that.
I mean, this is kind of just like a no-brainer for restaurants or anybody that's dealing with kind of, with food in any capacity.
Yeah, it's included in most of the restaurant policies. They are not as high of a risk to have a separate policy. We have it included in many of our business policies as covered content. It's the larger businesses, the larger chain restaurants, and the larger manufacturers that would really look to have additional coverage in there because they're going to have additional expense that goes beyond a single location or a single batch that could have an issue, could be contaminated, and go from there.
There's this extra expense that you talked about as far as like marketing efforts, overtime of regular staff, possibly hiring of temporary staff. What's the claim process look like for an incident like this where, foodborne illness is affecting your business? Like, how does the owner have to go through putting the claim in?
That's a great question because it could probably take a couple of days before you know that you're the root cause of it, right? Mm-hmm. So how long does it take for more than one person to get sick and then for the hospital or for the health department to then trace it back to a specific location? So it could take days before it's exposed and then days before a claim gets submitted. And then it really comes down to the investigation. Did the Board of Health shut you down? Are you closed? So it's going to take some time because between the investigation from the insurance company with respect to what's happening at the restaurant, what the Board of Health requirements are, and then what the financial trouble becomes, what was the revenue prior to, what was the revenue after, what was actually lost and missed in the middle is going to be super important. So it's not something that, we have that little claim, we have this illness that spikes up and, hey, I lost 4 days worth of business, pay me now. It's something that's going to take time. It's a process. It's going to take several weeks of investigation and uncovering and providing financial data to get things going. In some policies, there will be some immediate payout for certain expenses, known as extra expenses. So a couple $1,000s here and there could be paid out on a more rapid basis. But for the most part, it's going to be a process. Just like any commercial or personal claim, it's going to be a process and a negotiation and work by both parties, both the insurance company and the insured and the operators to bring the data to the table so that it can get processed appropriately.
So, I mean, as even though, obviously things take time, it's in the best interest of a company, example, like a restaurant, once something happens like this, or there's even a chance that something like this is happening, to kind of get on the phone with the insurance company and just kind of work out what is actually going on, so that you're kind of on top of it, basically?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with the consumer themselves and how they act and react during the claim process. The quicker you provide the data required and comply with the investigation and everything else that's needed, the quicker you're going to be compensated. If you're non-compliant with the insurance company when they're doing their investigation and requesting the data that they require, it just makes the whole process take longer.